Hello, everybody. I got 15 minutes to present here, but what we're working on is a privately invested and funded fiber optic project for the Northwest Territories and a cloud data center service to help us push our project forward for long-term sustainable economic development for the region, job creation, IT development, and also increasing competition in the north. Lyle Fabian from the city of Yellowknife, originally from KatloTech First Nation, which is a community 5 hours south of the city of Yellowknife. So, what is internet, right? Internet is the old systems. I put old systems because satellite has been around for a long time. But people don't know that fiber has been around since the 50s, since they first made this new thing called laser technology that really helped and really brought in a whole new era of long-term redundancy and reliability. Fiber is just conduit to light, to send signals and lights of ones and zeros over a long distance with the least path of resistance. Copper in the Northwest Territories, when Ma Bell was in existence before we have baby bells all over the place, was that everything was all on exchange units that housed a lot of power in order for them to push out a lot of signal over copper, and were always interfered with radio signals and other signals, and so it wasn't really reliable. So the current situation is that in the Northwest Territories, there is a huge lack of competition. We have maybe a few players, but those few players don't have gainful access to the incumbents' infrastructure. What is happening with our company? What is happening in the Northwest Territories is that we're proposing a 315 kilometer fiber optic build, 288 strand, low latency loss cable. At first, it was just an idea that I threw together in regards to what would it take for us to build our own fiber optic project in the Northwest Territories. I've done fiber projects for many years. And then I just said, you know what, how about I just go direct of the suppliers and actually go find out what the fiber actually costs. And I did for KatloTech First Nation for them. When we put out a bid to build a community-based network, KatloTech First Nation, the incumbent quoted the community $1.3 million. And I said, that's insane. And so I said, I'm going to go out there and find people to help us build our own test-based initial project to build a 1 kilometer fiber optic network, 48 strand network. And at the end of the day, it cost the community, with federal government grants and investments, $279,000 in comparison to a $1.3 million build. And so that is where KatloTech Communications came out of, was just that very first initial project in 2009. What I've been doing since then has been doing aerial and ground deployments, trenching, wireless, satellite technology, you name it, bringing solutions to Indigenous communities where it's more cost effective for us to build out our own networks rather than having outside players come in and sell us equipment that we don't know how to operate or manage ourselves. And so that is pretty much the concept of what I've been doing since 2009. So this is the Northwest Territories. We are in north of Alberta. What we're proposing is a 288 strand fiber optic network into the Northwest Territories, interconnection with Alberta SuperNet, and then trenching that cable north to south and interconnect to a small facility, 20,000 square foot, 4.3 megawatt facility, for cloud access, cloud backups, et cetera, and with the interduct and all that stuff. And so we estimate this project is about $21 million. So these are our timelines. We've just finished our planning and engagement, and right now we're currently working on secure more additional funding, and we're hoping to start construction next May. And the data centers will go live in the fourth quarter 2027. We, at one point, decided to go to this meeting in Vancouver, and I've been talking about this project since 2009. And every single supplier and investor, Dog and Pony Show, Annexter International, CDW, you name it, everybody I went to hit up in regards to building a fiber optic cable network in the Northwest Territories. Lo and behold, I ended up talking to the guy at this party, and he said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I just need money." And he said, "Well, come talk to me tomorrow." And I said, "I have no idea who you are." And so put together a quick proposal and walked out of the meeting with a huge investment from the Ramco in regards to 288 strand from their warehouse dedicated into investing in our project. And so what that opened up for us was the ability to show a potential viability in our project. There's Shane Norbert of Noramco stating that they've been looking for something like this for a very long time to invest in, to give back to the Indigenous communities. And for them, it just made economic sense based on the economic model and business plan and business case we presented to them. August, we got the official go-ahead from Noramco that they're willing to invest in our project. Not shortly after that, I got a phone call from the previous infrastructure minister of the Northwest Territories, Michael Miltenberger, and said, I heard you're doing this thing called this fiber optic network in data center in the Northwest Territories. And one of the biggest failings that I felt that has come out of the Northwest Territories is the Mackenzie fiber link. The point of presence for Indigenous communities was not fully fulfilled in that project. And so therefore, I believe myself personally investing in this project for this to be fulfilled. The problem today that we have is that we have slow, expensive, unreliable, no competition in the Northwest Territories, no data centers. All the data that we propose in the Northwest Territories travels a very long way from point A to point B and then comes back. Therefore, our solution is about a fast, affordable, redundant network. Introduced competition in the Northwest Territories, which currently doesn't exist today for Indigenous communities and other ISPs and mobile carriers. We also want to host locally all our edge computing in the Northwest Territories. This provides jobs, local training, and also economic growth for the region in the Northwest Territories. So what makes KatloTech different? First, KatloTech Communications is 100% Indigenous owned. We're not a telco. We are a wholesale broadband provider. Our network is a tool for community advancement. Our data center is what is funding everything in all our investments today, which is a real estate investment, which is allowing communities to benefit and own part of the data centers and also own part of the physical infrastructure. One of the things that we've decided to do is to change up how we build data centers in the Northwest Territories, modularize and scale up the data centers as we see fit every time we fill up a new unit. So the data center REIT is a proposed 3 megawatt facility initially, which is a 20,000 square foot real estate investment on Katladici First Nation. We will take a look at data center sovereignty for the Northwest Territories, where we're hosting all our clients' information on Indigenous sovereign land. We are also proposing 20 by 40 available lots for leasing, minimum 5-year leasing agreements, and 10 set aside. We're also looking at building our own modular containers. And so that is the investment that we got is really backed by the data center REIT. And that's the reason why we got the investment that we did. This is IceFox Data Center. IceFox Data Center will be able to be cooled 9 months out of the year with ambient air. Will be connected into a fiber optic grid, 288 strands. At the same time, we can provide remote backups, cloud hosting, AI development, and anybody else that wants to park their own container on our site has that ability. You got to lease the infrastructure, lease wavelengths, and so on and so forth. Out of the 208, the proposed network, as you see, roads are in, site has been cleared, power poles are up. This is how we're lighting. What we have is 4 42U racks with equipment to load on one end of the network. These are other potential modular container units that we're going to be leasing, also a 65 kilowatt unit. This is one of the biggest units that we are proposing, which is a 14 rack 42U design. On the average of us having leased this full capacity, we're looking at co-location rental, internet access, cross connects, remote telecom support, power usage, and so forth. We're looking at an annual generational revenue about $1 million a piece per, if we can lease out all the racks in this capacity. So IceFox, people are saying, where are you going to get your power? Right now, Hay River is situated on a thing called Tultston Hydro. The current system is an 18 megawatt facility on the Tultston River in the Northwest Territories. KatloTech and IceFox data centers, we'd like to expand to a 4 megawatt facility, but the Tultston Hydro in the Northwest Territories, the river system has a potential of 200 megawatts. Right now, they're proposing a 60 megawatt expansion. And I'm hoping that after that expansion that we will grow our 4.8 megawatt facility to a 20 megawatt facility. This is the Tulston Hydro, which is on the far right bottom. As you can see in the Northwest Territories, Hay River is where KatloTech First Nation is. And you'll see our phase 1 fiber optic network, which would interconnect to our 20,000 square foot data center facility. The red is phase 2, us looking at self-funding through the cloud access and revenues from the data centers to help pay for phase 2, which will bring interconnection to the Mackenzie fiber link. So what this does for the region is a huge economic impact in regards to local job training, education, spending, and also long-term benefits for cloud access and Hay River as a potential technical hub for the Northwest Territories. We're also looking at a 431, what I just talked about, the interconnection to the Mackenzie fiber link. But where do we want to go? This is where we want to go. We want to bring through the cloud access our main facility on KatloTech First Nation. We want to expand our phase 1 to phase 6 and 7, where we bring interconnection to both the Mackenzie fiber link and the Yukon fiber project. And 100% self-funded through our data center REIT facility. We're looking at estimated network speeds in comparison to the Google network. That is what we estimate could be potential ISP's speeds. This is our KatloTech network topology. We're looking at a 35 kilowatt prefab building, modularized container for our PON equipment that would go over a 288 fiber optic cable into Steen River, Alberta, and then from there, recharge that signal into KatloTech First Nation, and then plugged into another fiber optic cable to interconnect to all modular containers. Our service offerings for the dark fiber is dark fiber leasing, lit fiber services, and co-location services. Our target customers are ISPs, telecom providers in the Northwest Territories, CAIs, community anchor institutions, which are 33 Indigenous communities in the Northwest Territories, military, law enforcement, and so on and so forth. Our community economic impact is we're going to be creating increased competition in the north, increased broadband access, expansion in the north, and also enhance internet speeds and reliability in the Northwest Territories, bringing much required redundancy for both military and data sovereignty and national security and all those bells and whistles that everybody's throwing around. So we're looking at massive revenue streams of initial revenues. Let's say we decide that we want to lease each fiber strand times the total amount of 329 kilometers. These are just numbers that we threw out there that let's say we wanted to lease long haul fiber. At some point, when we do get leasing 288 strands, just leasing 280 strands, we can potentially generate about $55 million a year in long-haul fiber leasing. Phase 1, the data center outlook. This is a year-by-year revenue breakdown for, let's say, we have 65 kilowatt units, 15 of them on site, and 1,500 kilowatt units. We're looking at a total estimated revenue, if we can hit that 4.8 megawatt capacity, is a combined total revenue of about $130 million a year in cloud services and edge computing in the north. The kilowatts, we're looking at 65 kilowatt, 15 units, plus 100 kilowatt units. So the overall site requirement is a 2.4 megawatt facility. So the Tulston Hydro has enough capacity to supply us for power for the next 20 years. If we stay at a 4.8 megawatt facility size, we do not want to. We want to grow the facility continuously over the next 20 years. So key insights, total revenue over the next 5 years, $137 million just for the cloud data center power requirements. And the profitability is that we, in our business plan and business case, it just made economic sense for a lot of the investors that are at the table to help bring this project to life. And if it wasn't for Noramco and also other key investors to give us their money for this project, right now we are working with a loan application to Canada Infrastructure Bank. They're reviewing our application, and we were scheduled to have meetings. Parliament is in play now, and everybody's busy. Conclusion, our project would advance cloud infrastructure services in the Northwest Territories for significant economic and social impact for our community. What we're looking at is 45 key personnel year-round with an annual salary total combined about $4.9 million. Why am I doing this, and why the investors gave me the money that they did? This is it. Can you imagine that when Nunavut fiber link is complete and quintillion the Arctic fiber is done, they're looking at phase 2 Japan And then utilizing the existing networks in the Northwest Territories, not only that, but also I want to create a data flow from both Europe and Asia into our data centers in the Northwest Territories. This is a $2.3 billion economic potential for the Northwest Territories. That's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing and why the investors gave me the investment that I have today. And I'm just here to tell everybody that it can be done. But you need to have a strong business case, business plan, and a good team behind it in order for this to be pulled off. I've been doing this since 2009, and I'm glad to say that we're a step closer. And I'm hoping that we will have our fiber. We just did our site drive this year with our engineering team from Light Access and Ironman Services, and we drove the phase one route, and they were so surprised in regards to the pristine environment for trenching that this will propose for them, because they're so used to trenching in Alaska, Yukon, and British Columbia. When they came and did a site drive with us, they were like, this is amazing. This is going to be easy. This is unreal. This is all sod soil and everything is straight. So yeah, so that's what KatloTech Communications is doing. And I'm hoping that we'll have more updates in the near future. Thank you very much.